Hello everyone and welcome to a new part of Allplan Basis course for students. My name is Jacob Martin and today we will talk about sections and the layout editor. So again, click on recent projects and do a double click on Allplan Basis course 1. So the next thing I want to talk about is how to create sections. And to do that, we have to dive a little bit deeper. So again, let's go to our open on a project specific basis. Still from the last tutorial, drawing 41 is activated. We don't need that really anymore. Just set it to edit, as well as the columns, the base plates, the foundation, and the grid. Set everything to edit. On the left side, we can see our building structure. And we already talked about a lot of the building structure. So on the right side, there is the reefed form building structure. And you can already see there is our project on top, and we have views, sections, and reports. And this is basically what we are going to use to create different sections. So we do a right click on sections. And now we are going to insert different structural levels. And you can see that these kinds of structural levels are very different from the left side. And don't confuse the building structure with the reefed from building structure. This is important because the reefed from building structure is very different and has a very different purpose. So let's go ahead, for example, let's choose sections and insert structural levels. So we have sections, for example, just like that. And we can rename them, of course, cross section 1. Cross section 2, and we can just rename it to planning stage or whatever. It doesn't really matter what you name it. I just want to show you that you're able to basically change these kinds of the reefed from building structures. So I already said that in part 3. It's now important to note that the drawings that we are going to assign are the same drawings that we have assigned on the left side. And the pool of drawings that we access is the same that we are accessing on the left side. So it's not possible to basically assign drawing number 1 to 50 on the right side. And I would highly suggest that you keep a lot of space in between the building model, which is on the left side, and the reefed from building structure, which is on the right side. So let's go ahead, right click, cross sections. And this is also an important thing. You can't assign drawings itself on the structural level sections. So there's cross section 1, assign drawing files, just like that. And now we go ahead, 1000 to 1009. Okay. Go ahead, assign drawing files 1010 to 1019. Just like that. So we have a lot of space in between the building structure and the reefed from building structure. So this is a good thing, and keep that in mind so you don't come into trouble when it comes to assigning different drawings. So the first cross section we will also rename. Let's say, take a quick look. Okay. So we will name that one cross section, and I will use this kind of grid, A/, oh no, I was mistaken, I'm sorry, 1/A to C. Just like that. And 90-degree angle. Let's put the next one just like that. So this is cross section 2, no, I'm sorry, C/1 to 3, just like that. So this cross section will be placed there. And what we're doing now is basically we have the drawing number 1000 and we will basically set the drawing number 1000 to current. And keep in mind that all the other drawings are into the edit mode. So let's close that one. And now we can see basically our project, our building model that we have created. Now let's dive into the sections. So it doesn't really depend on which role you're on, as long as you're architecture or engineering. So architecture, and there we have our sections. You can see in the action bar in the label elements that we have the sections menu right here. And I will expand that one. Just like that. Good. We will choose now the function generate section. We also have something like modify view section, or we have label associatively, or show clipping path. We have also generate view. We can see basically what that's all about. We can generate external view very easily, but we are going to generate a section. And what happens if we click on generate section, on the left side, we see the label create clipping path. And there are a lot of settings there, and we have to take our time to go through these settings, because these settings and how they're set, they're really crucial. So the first thing is the input of the basic method. I will quickly change to advanced, but we don't really need that one. So input basic is perfectly fine for our needs in this kind of project. And then we have the type. And the type itself, for example, we have the vertical section and the horizontal section. So we will also talk about the horizontal section itself, but the vertical section we can do just like that. And now we have the clipping path. And the clipping path basically is a geometrical object that shows us how big or what shape our section has. So we have the section identifier 1, and the height from elements, we can keep that one for a moment, which is fine, but there you can set the height for the section. Then we have settings for place clipping line, which is also fine. And then we have the representation. So we go on that one, and we can basically change the complete view from this kind of representation of the clipping path. So we have the style, which is Allplan style. There is also the use standard style. We don't need that one. And the section identifier, left and right, is the same. So we could basically change the left and right, the looks of the identifier itself. And we have the section identifier in construction line format. We will keep that one as well. And the text parameters. So please keep in mind that these kinds of settings are only there for the clipping path itself. We also have the clipping line. I always like the broken section line. There's also the continuous section line we don't really need, at least for my taste. And we have the length of line segments. So this is the length in meters. So we can basically choose that one for half a meter, which is perfectly fine. 0.25, line 1, and that's all good. We also have the direction symbol. Left and right is the same. And I always choose number 2 because this one is filled and this is what I want. And we could also change the offset, what we don't really need. Okay, so now we've made our settings regarding our section. We're now going to place our first clipping path for the first section. And this is a little bit complicated. I want to show you the quick way. We're not going to use that one in the final product, but if you want to do it quickly, you would click one time there and one time there. So basically in the plan view, the points where the clipping line should be. And after that, Allplan asks you, generate section next point. And what we are doing now is we press escape once. I will show you what that's all about. Escape once, and now we can see that the clipping path, it changed. The looks of it changed drastically. So we can see basically on the right our clipping line symbols, and now we are defining the depth of the viewing direction. So let's, for example, choose that one, and that's it. We already have the first section generated. We will do that a little bit more specifically in a couple of seconds, because this is not very clean, not very precise. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to make very quick sections. So if I would go ahead and someone comes to me and asks me, hey, I need a section right through the store, and I can go ahead and say like, okay, let's go. Click. Oh, I misclicked. Sorry. Generate section. Click. Click. Escape. Click. And that's it. And there I have it. Okay. And we also have to talk a little bit about these different kinds of settings that we are having regarding that kind of section. So I'm deleting the section and the clipping path itself. Now let's do it together. So basically generate section. And now we basically take very clean offset coordinates. So I always choose half a meter to the left, 0.5, and 10 centimeters down. So delta x is minus 0.5 and delta y is minus 0.1. Enter. And now let's go ahead and do the same on the opposite side. So 0.5 to the right and minus 0.1 down. Enter. And again, I can't stress about this enough. It asks us about generate section next point. And what we are doing now is press escape once, and Allplan asks us now for the depth and the viewing direction of the section itself. So we will basically choose the depth, and it should be 10 centimeters to the top from the edge of this kind of block foundation. And this is again where we use the offset coordinates. So we hover over that point, delta x 0.1, press enter, boom, and there we have it already. So this is basically the first thing that we do when we want to generate a section. So we could use also the drag line and place this kind of section down here, and it's perfectly in line now with the section and the clipping path itself. So just let's do it maybe like that. And because we have the drawing number 3 also activated for the reference drawing files, and this is a reminder, all the drawing files that we have activated beforehand are shown here. So this is the source for our section. So keep that in mind. And since the grid that we have created is also part of the source of the different drawings, we have now the input options for our axis. So input options, axis. I would always suggest that you choose from bottom. And now we could basically do something like that. So I pressed escape a couple of times, and now we can see that we have 2 different lines around our section. So we have the clipping line and the section. So let's do a double click on the section. And there we basically have the modify section menu. So we could remove and add certain elements. We could basically change the source of the drawing files. We could also change the clipping path itself, which is like a really high level setting that basically changes the complete section that we've generated. We could change the layers, and we could also change the setting for update automatically. So let's check what that's all about. So if I go ahead and I click on that kind of column, I can see that this column, even in my model itself, is now being activated. So I could go ahead and basically change that column, maybe not that kind of value, something like that. And you can see that the model gets also changed. The height, of course, I can change the height because I basically assigned the height to the different planes that I've created earlier. So this is the first thing. I can basically also change the elements in my section. But if I change the setting, update automatically, what happens now is that these lines are being generated, and I could go ahead, for example, and copy these kinds of lines, copy, paste, or I could delete them. This is also possible. So basically what happens is that a 2D drawing, two-dimensional drawing is being generated. So we don't want that right now. Apply. Okay. So let's go ahead and go through the different options that we have for our section. So we have a resizing that we could use, factor for X and Y direction. Okay. And the most interesting setting is probably formats. I'm not going to describe like every part of that because that would be a sole video on itself. But what we can do is, for example, we can change the viewing type for display edges. So we can basically activate and deactivate hidden edges. Take care that you always apply the changes after you change something in this kind of menu. So I like to change that to black, so it looks like that. We also have the clipping lines itself. We could basically have change the setting for hidden and intersected edges. We also have the section surface elements. And this is basically what we could do with this kind of section. So you can see there are a lot of elements, a lot of things that we could change. So there's that. So let's keep that for a second. All right. So this is how we basically generate a section very quickly. So let's do that again with our cross section 2, and we will even generate a third one. So close, generate section. And now we basically can go ahead, input our offset coordinates, now 90 degrees turned, delta x 0.1, delta y 0.5, enter x minus 0.1, and there we have it already. So the interesting thing that happens now is that we now have a section that basically cuts through certain elements. So this section is now cutting through elements. So let's do a double click on that kind of sections and go to formats. And we could basically take a look at the surface elements. So I was clicking on clipping lines, and after that, go to surface elements from components and apply. And this is what I wanted to showcase to you, because this is really important. When we created these kinds of elements, we always defined a style area. So the thing about this is, if we just take a look at it, style area, we can change the drawing type, and with the drawing type, the looks of what we've just defined earlier. So let's go again to drawing type. And for example, we could choose something like Allplan or something like Bewährungszeichnung. It doesn't change right there, but if we change it now to something different, and Wurfszeichnung, for example, the looks of it change drastically. And this is important because if you're working with multiple people on an Allplan, on one project, and you're basically all using one model, the architect wants to have a different kind of setting for his sections than the engineer. You need a different kind of drawing style for example, for the reinforcement planning. or for the first drawings you're going to give your contractor. So please keep that in mind. This is the reason why we defined the things we did earlier, and I want to show it again just to make it sure with the style area. Okay? Because the style area is dynamic. The hatching will always be the same. So let me show that to you. Let's take that wall, define a hatching, just like that. And it won't change, it's not dynamic. But if I change the drawing type, for example, to Vorentwurfszeichnung, then this will change. If I change, for example, it to reinforcement plan, it will change. But only if we have the style area defined. So let's change that one back. Okay, good. So there is that. Let's go again to open on a project-specific basis. Let's go ahead in our planning stage and add another section. And there we have it, plan section 1. Assign drawing files, you already know that. How we do it. Just like that. And there is plan section 1. Okay, and again, keep in mind the shuffling deck I mentioned earlier. If I want the plan section to be on the bottom. And now let's go ahead and generate a plan section, because this is also kind of interesting. So again, go to generate section. And now we have to change the type. So for the menu create clipping path, we can click on horizontal section. And now we're going to deactivate the hide from elements, because the hide from elements will generate a section that is exactly the height of the elements that are in the section itself. If you don't want that, for example, for a plan view, we can change the top level and the bottom level of the plan view. And this will be, of course, since we are going to generate a plan view with a horizontal section, this will be different. So the top level will be the area where the section will be cut through our model, and the bottom level will be the depth view. So we can change that one to minus 0.5 and the top level to 1.1, for example. The input is kind of different. The input is more like a 2D area that we are basically generating in a plan view. So let's go ahead. I want to show that to you. Delta x minus 0.5, delta y 0.5. And there we have again our rectangle. And now the opposite side, delta x 0.5, delta y minus 0.5. Enter. Escape. And there we have it. There's our plan view. And you can see in the front or south elevation that the height is exactly the height we've defined when we uncheck the box height from element. So this is 1.1 and this is minus 1.05. Okay, so we're going ahead and we are placing the plan view right here. So why should we basically generate a plan view if we already have our model there? Let me tell you. So the problem with the model itself is that we are not basically able to change the view of the section, and we're able to do that here. So if I double click on the section, formats, surface elements, just like that, I'm basically able to change the view just like it is. So let's take a look at our model. We can see, for example, that these kinds of edges from our foundation is not rightly projected when we see it in the context of a section itself. If we look at our section, we can see that we have the right drawing right here. And this is because we have a generated plan view. So this is the reason why I would highly suggest that you also create plan views. Okay, so there is that. So let's continue with something different because I want to demonstrate you something. So let's take our first cross section, and now we're going to add labels. So we have our labels with our dimension line. This is also kind of easy. We can change the dimension line to horizontal or, for example, to vertical. And I would always highly suggest that you basically activate all these kinds of options up here. So associative and auto-detect, and let's go to properties itself. Take a very quick look there, because there we have the settings for basically everything related to the dimension line. So we have text, dimension line, input options, stuff like that. And also the positioning rule. So let's change that one to the top. So what we're doing now is we click on OK. Now we go ahead and we place basically a dimension line. So offset coordinates, just as we knew it, minus 0.5. And now we have basically settings for short slash and long slash, stuff like that. And I will input that a little bit more quickly. So I'm basically clicking on the points that I want my dimension line to be. And since we have auto-detect, it's very simple to do so. Just like that. Yes. And there we have it. Click. 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 We could also add, for example, the door opening. There it is. Just like that. And add another one, so I can add more and more lines. Very easy. If I just use the function that Allplan provides me if I go close to another dimension line. I will show that in a couple of seconds. So just like that. And like that. So if you are still in the dimension line and have that option activated, and go ahead and you basically have like the offset coordinates for the dimension line itself, and you can input these kinds of values. So there's that, and I will also add another dimension line on top just to make it a little bit more precise and complete. Door opening layer. Door opening layer. There it is. Click, click, click. Click, click, click. And I will also add another one very quickly. And I'm going to do a showcase now to you why we did all the work. So, but quick information. So always, if you want to move dimension lines, always, always, always use the right click, move dimension line, and not the normal moving part. So right click, move dimension line, just like that. Okay, so let's play around a little bit. Let's talk about why we assigned all these different planes and why it was so complicated. So, for example, the first thing I want to show you is, for whatever reason, we need to change the positioning of the block foundation. So what we could basically do is we go ahead and we change it. So I changed the model, keep that in mind. So the model itself has changed. What happens now is that all the different sections that we have generated will also be changed automatically. And this is a very important thing. But even further, because we generated the label the way we wanted it to, this is also been changed. So you can see the dimension line followed because of the auto detection and so on. It followed basically my elements. And this is a very big game changer because, I don't know, it was 2012 or 2015 still, we were basically drawing all these different kinds of sections, and if something changed, we had to change like the section itself, and we had to recalculate the section, and we also had to go ahead and basically change the dimension lines. And this is not needed anymore. But let's take this a little bit further. So let's say for whatever reason, the height of the foundation has to change. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's change the height, or maybe change the height of the base plate. I think that's even better. So this is now at -0.1. And if we change it, and I clicked on the floor manager and I changed that kind of value, we have the planes below. We will keep that one on retain height, and we have the planes above where we basically click on move up. So click on OK, just like that. And now everything has changed. So let's also change the thickness and make it really obvious of the plate, just like that. Let's click on OK, close. And now you can see that all these kinds of section changed automatically as well. And I can't even stress about how much of a difference this makes and how good it is that this kind of function is now active and everything will be updated automatically. So please keep that in mind if you're drawing, because this is a really big game changer, like for everything. And even further, the good thing is that all these different dimension lines followed this kind of model and this kind of section. So let's change that one back. So this should be set to 0, retain height, and this should be set to -0.25 as much as I remember. Retain height, yes. And you can see how easily I basically changed all of these different kinds of sections. All right, so let's save that one. And I think it's not really necessary for this part of the tutorial that I add labels for everything. I think that's not really necessary, but I want to show you something as well, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you, and this is the layout editor. So let's click on layout editor, and this is the only label that you see on top that is basically very different from what happens with your drawing space. So if you click on layout editor, the drawing space changes completely. And this is a very good and quick thing that I want to show you, because with an ease we can create plans and export PDFs and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and click on project specific bases after you've clicked on layout editor, because now something will happen. You will not access the building structure that we had beforehand. We are now going to access, open on the project specific basis, the layouts. So this is very different. So basically we have all the different layouts for the different kinds that we want to export. Now we go ahead for the first one and basically say Allplan basis course sections. Now we go to close. And the good thing is, like, setting up this kind of layout editor is really easy. So we can basically click on setup page. A new menu pops up. We can also take that kind of menu and add it right there. So this is fine. And now we can basically do a setup. So let's change the format from the page to DIN A0. We can also change the orientation. We don't need that. And the margin is also something that we have to keep in mind. So please change the margin, if not already there, to without roll PDF. And we can also change the properties. So we basically have the layout border that we can change. So we have the filling margin. We can set to different standards. Filling margin DIN 824A, and we can see the standard setting provides the border panel line type that is very different from I would recommend to you. So change that one to 0.25, 1, 0.25, 1, and this is what it looks like, okay? So this is the first thing. Don't click on close yet because we're not finished. So if you clicked on close or escape, it's fine. You can still access the setup page up here. Let's go to title block, and we have basically two options, and they are not that different from each other. So we have layout legend and label. So let's go to layout legend very quickly, and we can see we have a legend selection. We have folder default, office, project, external path, stuff like that. And there we have different kinds of layout legends. I click on cancel now. We have label as well, and we can, for example, choose the folder default, layout labels too, and there's the label style title block MP. I really like that one, so I would suggest that one to you. So let's go to label block MP, click on OK, and this will be placed with an according offset. The good thing is if you set it to 5 millimeters, the folding edges will be perfectly in line with the title block that you've just created. So I can highly suggest it to you that you do it as I just did. You could also use a background. To be honest, I don't really use that one because I don't need it. If you still need it for whatever reason, you can set it here. So let's close that one. Centralize the view. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our layout elements. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting at first. So layout elements, there we have our menu. We have a lot of different settings in this kind of menu, but the most important button is the building structure. So let's click on building structure. And now we have the selection for our drawing files. So we can basically change in between the left side of our building structure or the derived from building structure with these buttons up here. Okay. So go to the derived from building structure and choose all the different drawings from the derived from building structure. Click on OK and set them to the top. So this doesn't look really nice right now. So let's go on escape and we can see, okay, we have a layout element there, another layout element there. This is not really what we want. So we have to change it, right? So go on layout windows. And this is basically our tool that allows us to cut these different kinds of elements. So go to layout window and click on off layout elements already placed. Click on OK. And now Allplan asks us for select layout elements. And what we are basically going to do is we select all these elements. And now we can create a layout window. So basically top left, bottom right, escape once, and this is what it should look like. And now we can use our moving function to move around very easily and free. We can also see, and this is not very good, that our layout is way too big. Okay, and a good thing, because we created like the complete setup of our layout with page, margin, properties and stuff like that, we can now easily change it. So change that one to DIN A1, just like that. And now we can see that this fits. It doesn't fit that well. So let's change that really quickly. Just like that. Move that one a little bit more to the left. Layout editor. Yes, I know. And this is what it looks like. So the last thing I want to show you is how to export these kinds of PDF. And this is really easy. So you go to export PDF data, you have your layout, press OK, choose an export path, choose open file with associated application, click on OK, boom, and there you have it. And this is basically how you generate PDF plans in Allplan. I hope you enjoyed this kind of tutorial and see you in the future. Bye bye.